Late at night in Hogwarts Castle, the halls are far from empty. By the glow of torchlight, translucent figures drift through solid walls and whisper through corridors. These are the ghosts of Hogwarts, silent guardians, pranksters, and long-dead students who still roam the castle they once called home. We see them at the start of term feasts, floating cheerfully between tables, or gliding alongside prefects during midnight patrols. They're a familiar part of life at the school. Yet how often do we stop to wonder? Who were these spectres before they became ghosts, and why have they chosen to linger in the world of the living? Hogwarts is full of ghosts, but few ever ask why they're really there. Each ghost carries a story from their life and a reason they did not move on after death. Tonight, let's wander those echoing candlelit passages, and meet the castle's resident spirits anew, not just as Halloween decorations or friendly tour guides, but as witches and wizards who once lived, died, and made a fateful choice. Why did they stay behind? What unfinished longing or pain still binds them to Hogwarts, centuries after their last heartbeat? Take Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington, for instance. Most know him simply as nearly Headless Nick, the jovial Gryffindor house ghost, who tips his plumed hat to new students, and graces the Gryffindor table with courtly greetings. In life, Sir Nicholas was a real knight and a wizard of the royal court in the late 15th century. He left his noble family at age 11 to attend Hogwarts, where he was sorted into Gryffindor, the very house he now haunts. After school, Nick moved in high social circles, and was even knighted, earning the Sir before his name. He was unusually friendly with muggles for his era, perhaps a bit too friendly for his own good. One day, Nick encountered a lady-in-waiting, Lady Grieve, who complained of crooked teeth. Ever the chivalrous wizard, Nick couldn't resist showing off a bit of magic to help. But his charm misfired disastrously. Instead of fixing Lady Grieve's teeth, he made a tusk sprout from her mouth. The poor woman's screams led to Nick's arrest. In an era when witchcraft met with brutal punishment, Sir Nicholas was sentenced to death for this botched spell. He met his end on October 31, 1492, via an executioner's axe. Unfortunately, or perhaps fittingly, the axe was dull, and the beheading went horribly wrong. It took 45 hacks to finally kill Nick, and even then his head was only partially severed from his neck. He died, but his head hung by a sinew, a gruesome detail that earned him the nickname, Nearly Headless Nick. Nick's death was cruel, but it wasn't the end of his story. Unlike most who pass on, Sir Nicholas chose not to leave the mortal realm. He returned to Hogwarts as a ghost, greeting new generations of Gryffindors. Why did Nick stay? In his own words, he remained because he feared death. "I was afraid of death," Nick once admitted softly. He chose the grey, silent life of a ghost, rather than face whatever lay beyond. Now, centuries later, he sometimes wonders if he made the right choice. "I am neither here nor there," he says with a sad chuckle, acknowledging that what he clung to is only a feeble imitation of life. For 500 years, Nearly Headless Nick has existed in that twilight state, not alive but not gone. He carries regrets, not only the literal pain of his botched beheading, but the spiritual pain of being stuck. Ghosthood gave him endless years within Hogwarts, but no warmth or growth. Nick can chat with students and pass through doors, yet he can never truly rejoin a feast, or feel the warmth of a summer day. Perhaps that's why at times he seems wistful. He throws himself into ghostly social life, even celebrating his death day each Halloween with morbid merriment. But he was glum at his own party when no living guests appreciated the rancid food and chilling music. He longs for small things he can no longer have, like the taste of roast beef, or the camaraderie of his old friends. And of course there is his most famous frustration. Nick is nearly headless, not fully headless, which barred him from joining the exclusive Headless Hunt. This polite, dignified spirit still feels the sting of exclusion and the ache of old mistakes. Yet he stays kind and helpful. Over the years, Sir Nicholas has been a guide and confidant to Gryffindor students, even Harry Potter himself. He once gave Harry gentle counsel about the nature of death, explaining that not everyone gets to come back as a ghost. And in a quieter act of kindness, Nick helped Harry avoid trouble with Argus Filch by persuading Peeves to smash an old vanishing cabinet as a distraction. These small acts show that Nick's caring heart still shines through his sad predicament. Nearly Headless Nick remains at Hogwarts out of fear, true, but also out of love for the school and the hope that he can still be of use. Not all Hogwarts spirits are so affable. In the shadowy dungeons, a far more unsettling figure glides through the darkness, silent, bloodstained, and weighed down by eternal remorse. Students whisper his name with a mix of reverence and fear: the Bloody Baron. Why? Because the Baron's very presence exudes an aura of dread and gravity. He is perhaps the only being in Hogwarts whom Peeves truly fears. Who was the Bloody Baron in life? His grim nickname hides a tale of passion and tragedy from the earliest days of Hogwarts. Over a millennium ago, when the castle was young, the man who would become the Baron was a student there, a noble-born Slytherin, with a hot-headed, intense nature. During his school years he met Helena Ravenclaw, the daughter of Rowena Ravenclaw. Helena was beautiful, proud, and unattainable, and the young Baron became infatuated with her. He courted Helena, but she consistently spurned his advances. Years passed, and after leaving school, Helena Ravenclaw committed a great betrayal. She stole her mother Rowena's most treasured possession, a diadem said to grant wisdom, and fled Hogwarts. Rowena, ashamed and heartbroken, told no one of the theft. Only when Rowena lay on her deathbed did she confide in a certain young man, and sent him to find her daughter, so she could see Helena one final time. That young man was the Baron, still desperately in love with Helena, and determined to succeed in his mission. He tracked Helena across distant lands until he finally found her hiding in a forest in Albania. There, their confrontation turned fatal. Helena refused to return with him, and the Baron's temper, always barely in check, exploded. In Helena's own words, the Baron became furious at my refusal, jealous of my freedom, and in a blind rage he stabbed her to death. The moment her body fell, the Baron was horrified by what he had done to the woman he loved. Overcome with grief and self-loathing, he used the same weapon to take his own life, plunging the blade into his heart. He died there, in the Albanian woods, drenched in the blood of the lady he adored. One might expect such a tormented soul to flee from the site of his crime, or to pass on and face judgment, but the Baron did neither. He returned to Hogwarts as a ghost, bearing forever the evidence of his crime. The silver bloodstains on his spectral clothes are Helena's blood, and the heavy chains he wears were self-imposed, the Baron's way of punishing himself for eternity. In life, he could not control his violence. In death, he chose a path of silence and penance. At Hogwarts, the Bloody Baron rarely speaks. He floats through the castle, grim and wordless, a living, or rather unliving, cautionary tale for the students who see him. His unnerving appearance and reputation keep even the boldest children at bay. If he has any mercy, it's that he keeps to himself, as though he knows his very image is a warning. The Baron's unbearable guilt bound him not only to this world, but to the very same place as Helena Ravenclaw. For Helena also returned as a ghost, and so the murderer and his victim have haunted the same halls for centuries, forever apart yet unable to truly leave each other. Perhaps this is part of the Baron's self-inflicted punishment. Even Peeves the poltergeist respects the Baron's authority, scattering at the mere flicker of the Baron's blood-soaked figure. One icy glare from the Baron can send Peeves tumbling through a wall in terror. It seems even pure chaos acknowledges the power of guilt and blood. The Bloody Baron remains at Hogwarts because his crime keeps him there. His remorse, like his rattling chains, tethering him to the place where he can eternally watch over what he destroyed, and perhaps ensure no similar tragedy occurs again. His story is a chilling reminder that some ghosts linger out of guilt as much as fear. High in the quiet of Ravenclaw Tower roams the Grey Lady, a ghost as pale and silent as morning mist. Few students know the sorrowful story behind her gentle, mysterious demeanor. In life, the Grey Lady was Helena Ravenclaw, the very woman whose murder created the Bloody Baron's curse. Now she drifts among the turrets and library shelves of Hogwarts, a wistful figure in a long silver gown, with wide, sad eyes. Unlike some other ghosts, Helena, as the Grey Lady, is reserved. Ravenclaw students learn to approach her politely with their questions or riddles. She may nod or give a hint, but she rarely speaks at length. Beneath her quiet lies a millennium of regret. Helena Ravenclaw was the only daughter of Rowena Ravenclaw, one of Hogwarts's founders. Growing up under the shadow of a brilliant and famous mother was not easy. Helena was ambitious and intelligent, but also proud. and perhaps she felt she could never match Rowena's wisdom. In a moment of envy and desperation, Helena betrayed her mother. She stole Rowena's enchanted diadem. The tiara said to bestow extraordinary wisdom, hoping to use it to make herself wiser and more renowned. With the diadem in her possession, Helena fled Hogwarts, disappearing into exile. Her impulsive act brought only heartache. Rowena Ravenclaw, stricken with grief and illness, kept her daughter's theft secret to preserve her family's honor. On her deathbed, Rowena sent the Baron to hunt down Helena, longing to reconcile. But as we know, the Baron's mission ended in tragedy. He killed Helena in his rage, and then himself. Helena died with the diadem's hiding place still a secret known only to her. Helena Ravenclaw's spirit did not rest easy. Perhaps it was the weight of guilt for betraying her mother, or the shock of her life being cut short by someone who professed to love her. Whatever the reason, Helena chose to return as a ghost, the Grey Lady of Ravenclaw. She drifted back to the school she had fled, forever young and forever sorrowful. In death, Helena was ashamed and reluctant to share her story. For centuries she told no one what had truly happened to her, or the diadem. Imagine her plight, to wander the halls founded by her mother, carrying the secret of how she stole and lost Ravenclaw's greatest treasure. Generations of Ravenclaw students sensed the Grey Lady's sadness, but could not ease it, for she kept her silence. It took another dark crisis nearly 1,000 years later to finally draw the truth from her. During the Battle of Hogwarts, Harry Potter himself, in his quest to find Voldemort's remaining Horcruxes, sought out the Grey Lady. He suspected that Rowena's lost diadem had something to do with the castle's secrets. Gently, Harry gained Helena's trust, and at last she revealed her long-held secret. Tom Riddle, as a student decades ago, had charmed her into confessing the diadem's hiding place. Riddle, the young man who became Lord Voldemort, was smooth-tongued and handsome. He played upon Helena's loneliness and pride. Flattered and yearning to share her burden, Helena told this charismatic boy about the diadem hidden in an Albanian forest. Tom Riddle traveled to that distant wood, found the diadem where Helena had concealed it, and later, in an act Helena never anticipated, he used the diadem to make a Horcrux, tainting her mother's artifact with dark magic. One can only imagine the Grey Lady's despair when she realized that her innocent confession to Riddle led to Rowena's diadem becoming a tool of evil. In Helena's mind, this was a second, unintended betrayal of her mother's legacy, a final twist of the knife. Yet, in the end, Helena found a sliver of redemption. By bravely sharing her story with Harry, she helped him destroy that Horcrux diadem and defeat Voldemort. Perhaps that heroic act brought Helena some peace, knowing she played a part in righting the wrong that had ensnared her for so long. Still, after the war, the Grey Lady continues to roam the quiet halls, gliding through the shadows of Ravenclaw. Why does she remain? It may be that Helena Ravenclaw cannot forgive herself. Her unfinished business is the forgiveness and understanding she never received in life. Her mother is long gone beyond the veil, so Helena lingers, a silent guardian of Ravenclaw's wisdom, and a living memory of the consequences of envy. In her endless vigil, the Grey Lady reminds those who notice her that knowledge and honesty go hand in hand, and that some mistakes echo through time. In contrast to the Grey Lady's melancholy, another house ghost offers a far more jovial presence. Down in the Hufflepuff basement, one might encounter a portly monk ghost humming merrily or playfully popping in and out of barrels. This is the Fat Friar, the ever-genial ghost of Hufflepuff. Clad in a robe with a rope belt and a benign smile on his transparent face, the Fat Friar seems an odd figure to haunt a school. He isn't frightening or sad. On the contrary, he's cheerful and kind. But his life and death contain their own tragedy, one he has chosen not to let darken his spirit. The Friar's real name is long forgotten, but we know he lived around the late 10th century. Like his fellow ghosts, he attended Hogwarts in his youth, sorted into Hufflepuff when the four founders themselves still walked the halls. After his magical education, he did something unusual for a wizard. He joined a religious order as a friar. Perhaps his Hufflepuff nature led him to a life of service, charity, and faith among muggles. The Fat Friar traveled and ministered to ordinary folk, all while quietly using magic to heal and help in ways the non-magical people didn't understand. According to the tales, the friar had a gentle touch. He could cure children with nothing but a simple stick, and he even had a mischievous habit of pulling rabbits out of the communion cup to amuse children. These little miracles, however, aroused the suspicion of his fellow clergymen. The Muggle churchmen grew uneasy that this kind-hearted friar had uncanny abilities. Rather than celebrating his good works, they accused him of unholy powers. In a grim turn of fate, the Fat Friar was executed by his own brethren, a victim of fear and ignorance, punished for magic that he only ever used to ease suffering. It was an unjust end for a man who had devoted his life to charity, yet if the friar carries any bitterness, he hides it well. In death, he returned to Hogwarts, perhaps because that was the one community where he had truly belonged and been accepted. As a ghost, the Fat Friar remains the embodiment of Hufflepuff warmth, patient, friendly, and endlessly forgiving. He greets new Hufflepuff students with a jovial smile and encouragement. He's known to be unusually tolerant of mischief. In fact, he's the one who often pleads on behalf of Peeves, arguing to give the poltergeist another chance when teachers complain. That's the friar's generous spirit. He even has sympathy for a chaotic troublemaker. The friar's continued presence at Hogwarts might spring from a simple, touching reason. He loved the community and didn't want to leave it, even in death. Perhaps he felt it was unfair how his life ended, cut short by those who failed to understand him, and he chose to remain in a place where magical folk would remember and appreciate him. Or perhaps as a man of faith, he had some gentle fear of the unknown after death, enough that he preferred to stay in the familiar halls among friends. If anyone had cause to be wary of the afterlife's judgment, it could be a pious man wrongly executed. But you'd never guess any fear or anger from the Fat Friar's hearty chuckle. He floats at the back of the Hufflepuff common room, beaming at student successes and offering a sympathetic ear if they're homesick or struggling. His is a gentle, supportive haunting. Unlike the Baron's clanking chains or Nick's wobbling head, the Friar's only sign of death is the faint memory of injustice which he never speaks of. In a castle full of darker tales, the Fat Friar stands out as a beacon of kindness and hope, a reminder that not all ghosts are born from despair. Some, like him, linger out of love and loyalty. Now, no discussion of Hogwarts' otherworldly inhabitants would be complete without mentioning the castle's most mischievous spirit, who, strictly speaking, isn't a ghost at all. His name is Peeves, and he's a poltergeist, a spirit of chaos and pranks. Peeves is a special case. Unlike the other spectral residents, Peeves has no tragic death or lost love in his past. In fact, he never lived to begin with. He came with the castle itself. Legend has it that when the four founders built Hogwarts and filled it with rowdy young witches and wizards, all that youthful magical energy coalesced into Peeves. It was inevitable that a building bursting with teenage magic would generate a poltergeist, a noisy, disruptive spirit, and Peeves is the most notorious poltergeist in British history. In other words, Hogwarts' wild atmosphere created him. He's been at the school since medieval times, an indestructible embodiment of misrule. Peeves looks like a small, pear-faced man with wicked eyes and a jester's grin. He can become invisible at will, though often he doesn't bother to hide. He wants you to see the havoc he wreaks. And havoc he does wreak. Peeves delights in mayhem for its own sake. He'll steal hats, throw chalk, topple stacks of books, and pelt students with water balloons. He composes rude songs about teachers and cackles at students' misfortunes. Many a first year has learned to duck at the sound of Peeves cackling, lest a bucket of slime land on their head. Attempts to control or evict Peeves have always failed spectacularly. The castle's caretakers in particular have fought a losing war against him for centuries. The most infamous attempt came in 1876, when caretaker Rancorous Carpe devised a grand plan to trap Peeves in a giant enchanted bell jar. It backfired disastrously. Peeves smashed his way out, armed himself with swords and cannons from a nearby armory and besieged the school for 3 days, firing weapons and terrifying staff, until the headmistress negotiated a surrender. The truce granted Peeves some special privileges, like a weekly swim in the boys' toilets and a new hat from Paris, in exchange for ending his rampage. Ever since, no one has dared try to banish Peeves. Doing so is more trouble than it's worth. Peeves, for his part, has become a fixture of Hogwarts. Generations of students have come to regard him with a mix of amusement, fear, and exasperation. He's the prankster spirit who was literally built into the school, as much a part of Hogwarts as the moving staircases or talking portraits. Why is Peeves allowed to stay? The truth is, Peeves cannot be removed. He's bound to Hogwarts, a permanent resident as long as the castle stands. There's no soul to lay to rest, since Peeves was never alive. He is the chaotic spirit of the place. In a sense, the staff have learned to tolerate him like bad weather, occasionally troublesome, but part of the natural environment of the school. And for all his mischief, Peeves isn't entirely malevolent. He adds a spark of anarchic humor to the castle's life. Many students, especially the troublemakers like the Weasley twins, secretly appreciate Peeves as an ally against stuffy authority. During the brief tyranny of Dolores Umbridge, for example, Peeves famously went on a gleeful rampage, loosening chandeliers and tracking mud everywhere, with encouragement from the Weasley twins. As a last gift of chaos when the twins left school, and in the final battle of Hogwarts, Peeves actually pitched in to defend the castle, bombarding Death Eaters with debris and singing victory songs. When Voldemort fell, it's as if Hogwarts itself fights back through Peeves when threatened. Day to day, however, Peeves answers to no one, almost. The only being in the castle who can truly curb Peeves's antics is, of all creatures, the Bloody Baron. For reasons only Peeves knows, he is terrified of the Baron. When the Slytherin ghost drifts by in chilling silence, Peeves scampers away, or at least behaves, tipping an invisible hat and muttering, "Your bloodiness, sir, my mischief was only in jest." The Baron's ire is the one thing Peeves will not test. This curious dynamic has led many to speculate that Peeves respects, or fears, the Baron's raw power or the darkness of his past. Whatever the reason, the Bloody Baron is Hogwarts' one poltergeist deterrent. Aside from that, Peeves answers only to his own chaotic whims. In the grand scheme, Peeves shows us that not all spirits at Hogwarts are tied to sorrow or regret. Some are just manifestations of the castle's enduring personality. He's the ever-present trickster, here to remind us that even in a place of learning, a little chaos will always persist.